Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. So, what I want to do before I get into the news articles that I have, that I want to get into this because apparently the U.S. Senate is concerned about privacy of Americans because the White House computers may or may not have gotten hacked by Russia. They got hacked by somebody. Somebody blamed Russia. The White House isn't really saying who did it, but the Senate, this same body from the U.S. government that has absolutely no problem with the NSA and other government agencies collecting data on millions of Americans. Now, all of a sudden, they're concerned about privacy because one of those computers, and I don't know if the White House computers are connected to the NSA computers or not, but, whatever, now they're concerned. Oh, well, somebody may have seen some stuff that they weren't supposed to see. And I'll get into that. But first, I want to kind of rant about something that I saw on the internet a couple days ago. Apparently, it's now a thing to, I guess, the Ice Bucket Challenge started these different challenges. And I don't know, there may have been, internet YouTube challenges before that one. But that was the first one that really came to my attention, was this Ice Bucket Challenge thing. And I was like, what the hell's this thing? Oh, people are I'm dumping water on my head, and then I'm donating money for ALS research. And it really made no sense to me, and whatever. But now there's two challenges that came to my attention within the last couple of days, and one is in response to the other. And I think that both of them, if you want to do either, yeah, go for it. Freedom of speech and whatnot. You definitely have the right to say what you want to say. You have the right to express yourself how you want to express yourself. But that does not mean that you are free from people expressing comment on what you're doing. And I'm going to say that I think both of them are stupid. The challenges that I'm talking about, there's the Eric Shepard challenge. I don't know who Eric Shepard is, but apparently the Eric Shepard challenge has something to do with people dancing on the American flag while it's laid on a ground. Okay, yeah, whatever. The people that love the flag and love the military and hate freedom of speech, they're not happy about it. I saw this story, and I'm using air quotes around that, came across my news feed on Facebook, and it was a report. I'm not even going to do air quotes around the word news for this. There was some report from Fox News where they were talking about this disgusting new internet challenge sensation going around, and the host of the thing was like, if you don't love the flag, you should move to another country. And so now there's something that has popped up in response to this called the American Patriot Challenge, and the video I saw was some guy saying, I think these people are sick and disgusting and blah, 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 so I'm creating the American Patriot Challenge. And then he says the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and then repeats, the military oath of office or something. I don't even know exactly what it is. It sounded kind of like the oath of office for, I'm being sworn into the military, the enemy is foreign, domestic, blah, blah, blah. But then he added other stuff that I'd never heard before. So I'm guessing he, modified the oath of office in his pledge. So since, people are just creating challenges, and, yeah, I know you're supposed to videotape yourself doing it, whatever. I'm just going to do the audio recorded version, and I'm going to create my own challenge. It's called the Free Speech Challenge. So here's what you do. You record yourself. It can be audio, it can be video. Now, write it in a blog post. I don't really care. But just say whatever you want to. That's the Free Speech Challenge. So what I'm going to do for my Free Speech Challenge, I'm the one creating it, so, I get to set the rules or whatever, and the rule is there are no rules. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to, dance on a flag. And even if I was doing it, there's no video, so you wouldn't know anyway. I'm not going to say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. But what I am going to do is I'm going to pledge allegiance to freedom and to the free expression for which it is shown. And I pledge allegiance to expanding the ideas that you are not owned by anyone else. I don't want to say that you own yourself, because that makes it seem as though like you're two entities in one, and that just seems kind of weird. But, I know it's a popular catchphrase, but you, as an individual, yes, you, the person listening right now, you have the exact same rights as every other person on the globe. And people in space stations, because I'm sure that there's probably some people in the International Space Station right now, like, they don't have more rights than you. The guy that calls himself President of the United States, he doesn't have more rights than you. The difference is not everybody is not everybody is able to exercise the same rights, but that does not mean that you don't have the same rights. So I pledge allegiance to letting people know that every human on Earth has the same rights as every other human on Earth. And that is the right to do as you please, to live your life, to pursue happiness, to own and possess property. You have those rights. What you do not have the right to do is cause unjust harm to another human. I pledge allegiance to those things, to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, to free expression of ideas. Now, if you want to take the free speech challenge, do whatever you want to. I really don't care. You don't even have to start a hashtag, like hashtag free speech challenge. You can do that if you want to. I don't care. I just think it's ridiculous. These internet challenges are ridiculous. And the news stories popping up, again, news in air quotes, basically slow news day, or we don't want to tell you about the hundreds of people that are civilians that got bombed by cluster bombs that the Saudi military was using in Yemen that they purchased from the United States government. We're not going to tell you about that. Instead, here's a stupid YouTube video of somebody dancing on a flag. Isn't that disgusting? Rah, rah, yay, America. That is disgusting. What people in the media should be talking about, and I will bring up this story since I mentioned it, is the cluster bombs. Now, you may or may not have ever heard about cluster bombs, but what they are is it's a bomb that has a bunch of smaller bombs inside of it. And, well, the U.S. government has been selling these to various governments around the globe, particularly to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Now, why is this important? Well, apparently the Saudi military has been using cluster bombs in Yemen, claiming that they're not using them in civilian areas. But I'll cover that story when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. During the 2013 Porcupine Freedom Festival, Davy Barker presented an idea for a renegade psychological experiment. Since then, he has refined his idea and put his plan and research into writing. He explains, "We aim to show the world beyond a shadow of a doubt that power corrupts absolutely and corrupt authority deserves no obedience." Authoritarian Sociopathy is available from Amazon.com, all major bookstores, and now available as an audiobook. Bitcoin Not Bombs is a launching pad for nonprofits and social entrepreneurs into the financial freedom of the Bitcoin economy. Bitcoin Not Bombs offers premium publicity campaigns designed to facilitate an organization's adoption of Bitcoin as a payment system. Bitcoin Not Bombs is fully committed to being the hub of the nonprofit sector of the Bitcoin economy, maximizing the potential cross-promotion of all our clients and commercial partners. To learn more, visit bitcoinnotbombs.com. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for t-shirts, precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. There's an Amazon shopping iframe built into the website, or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. That's shop.fppradio.com. Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. So I've got the story here from antiwar.com. The article published yesterday by Jason Dietz says, human rights groups are complaining that there is growing evidence of Saudi warplanes dropping cluster bombs provided to them by the United States on targets in Yemen's northwest. A global ban on cluster munitions was signed in 2008, though neither the United States nor the Saudi Arabian government was a signatory to the ban. The U.S. continues to export the bombs, which leave unexploded bomblets across an area, often for years, but the Pentagon insists that they only sell to countries that promise not to use them on civilians. And this is one of those, pinky promises, like, oh, yeah, if that's what I've got to say to be able to buy this stuff, yeah, sure, I won't use them on civilian areas. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The article here continues. It says, yet America's own recent history with cluster bombs is checkered at best, having littered civilian-populated areas in Iraq and Afghanistan with such bombs that leave brightly colored bomblets to be found by children. And this is probably the most disgusting part, is that, you've got kids that are going out and they're playing whatever it is that they do, like soccer, baseball, stick and dirt, well, whatever it is that they play with, and then they see this brightly colored thing that's an unexploded bomb. And, yeah, these things wind up blowing up and killing people. Yay for freedom, right? So let me go back here. The Pentagon insists that they only sell these bombs, to the cluster bombs, that is, to countries that promise not to use them on civilians, but yet the U.S. military uses these bombs on civilians. So can you see sort of the hypocrisy here? And again, it's one of these weird, wink, wink, nudge, nudge sort of promises that I don't think any government anywhere takes serious. Like the Saudi government said, yeah, we won't use these on civilian areas, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then they get them and they use them in civilian areas and just say, well, we killed a bunch of insurgents. We killed a bunch of militants. It's not our fault that they were hiding in a house with children. And again, I know I've said this before, but like the definition that they use for militant is any male over the age, I've heard over 13, I've heard over 18, but basically any male who is considered to be, capable of fighting is considered an insurgent. And I know that this is specifically talking about the Saudi government, but let me talk about the Israeli government for a moment. And I know I've covered these stories before, to where the Israeli government will bomb a hospital in Gaza, and there are a bunch of women and children died in this hospital, and a few insurgent people, I know, we will say that the insurgents were using women and children as human shields. So that's how these various countries get around the whole thing of you're targeting civilians. No. We weren't targeting civilians. The enemy was using civilians as human shields. Yeah, that's it. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So let me get back to the story here about the Saudi use of cluster bombs. The U.S. has similarly shipped bombs to both Israel and Saudi Arabia, nations that have been racking up major civilian death tolls in their recent wars. The Saudi government is denying the use of cluster munitions, though photographs coming out of Yemen show what appear to be CBU-105 U.S.-manufactured cluster munitions, which the U.S. has supplied to both Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates in recent years. The timing is particularly inopportune for the U.S., which has publicly backed the Saudi war, but also insists that they are concerned about the growing civilian death toll. The Pentagon has also announced that they have played a support role in the conflicts. So this is one of those things where the U.S. government is trying to have its cake and eat it too, where they're helping the Saudis kill people in Yemen, and then they're turning around and saying, but we're concerned about the growing number of civilians. But the U.S. government was not concerned about the growing number of civilians when it was U.S. drones that were killing civilians in Yemen. So what was the thing that I teased at the beginning of the show about the U.S. Senate being concerned about privacy after a White House computer or several White House computers were hacked? Well, I've got that story from Reuters. The U.S. Senate Commerce Committee has written a letter to President Barack Obama over concerns that a recently reported data breach on the White House computer system might have compromised the personal information of many Americans. The committee's chairman, John Thune, said in a statement yesterday in accompaniment with the letter, quote, just like an entity that handles personally identifiable data, the White House has a responsibility to notify Americans if the recent or if any future breach results in a compromise. If such information has been lost, the White House still has a responsibility to victims, even if it believes the hack was perpetrated by foreign spies and not cyber thieves. The White House did say last month that a CNN report that Russian hackers penetrated sensitive parts of the White House computer system referred to an incident it disclosed last year and declined to comment on who was responsible for the breach. It added that it took immediate measures at the time to evaluate and mitigate the activity. Asked about the Commerce Committee letter, White House National Security Council spokesman Mark Stroh declined to comment further on the breach, but did say we have consistently supported timely notification in the events of data breaches, consistent with existing federal policy. Thune, in his letter to Obama, said that while hackers did not appear to have accessed classified data, the unclassified computer system reportedly contained sensitive information such as schedules, policy discussions, and emails, including exchanges with diplomats. The South Dakota Republican wrote, noting that people must submit personal information before being allowed to enter the White House, said, quote, this unclassified computer system likely also contains the personally identifiable information of many Americans. Now, it's unknown if any of the information from people that created accounts on the petition.whitehouse.gov site, like we don't know if that information got hacked. We really don't know who did the hacking. We don't know really much of anything about it other than CNN says it was Russia. The White House spokespeople, they're saying, oh, we already told the American public that our computers got hacked. But did you get notified that some of your information may have been somehow leaked to a hacker or a foreign spy? Yeah, I didn't either, but again, I don't know if any of my info did because, I have an account on the petition site, but I think it only has a name and possibly an address that I don't even use anymore. There's more when we come back on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Coinbase is a simple and secure online Bitcoin wallet for sending, receiving, and storing Bitcoin. Coinbase also allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin using a bank account or use their tools to accept Bitcoin as a merchant. Opening a wallet is quick and easy, and for merchants, there are no transaction fees on the first $1 million worth of transactions. All of your funds on Coinbase are safe, with approximately 90% of customer funds being stored offline, and all wallets are stored using AES 256 encryption. To date, Coinbase has more than 1 million consumer wallets and is trusted by over 25,000 merchants, including Overstock.com, Khan Academy, Reddit, and of course, FPP. Get started at coinbase.fppradio.com. That's coinbase.fppradio.com. You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and Numery supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $3 per month or any amount of Bitcoin per month, thanks to the recurring payment options provided by Coinbase. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. That's FANS.fppradio.com. Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. Have you been paying attention to what is going on in Egypt? No, I'm not talking about the overthrow of a government and then setting up a military junta, and then that junta setting up some sort of thing to where they had a vote, and now the guy that was the head of the junta is now the president. I'm not talking about that, although this is kind of related. I'm talking about the reporters that have been sentenced to large amounts of time in prison. You have other reporters who have been arrested and never charged with crimes that have been in jail for about a year and a half. And you've got a bunch of other people that are just being sentenced to these enormous prison sentences, sometimes death, in these mass hearings to where there's like 500 co-defendants all at once. And it's a 4-hour hearing and everybody's guilty and half of them get death and the other half wind up getting life in prison. Well, Amnesty International put out a report over the weekend about some of the more, shall we say, some of the harsher punishments received by some of the reporters in Egypt. The story, again, comes from Reuters.com. They write, Amnesty International issued a report on Sunday that listed 18 reporters and media workers jailed and dozens more facing criminal investigations. The New York-based rights group said several reporters have been detained for long periods without charge or trial, including an Egyptian photographer known as Shawkan, who has been held for more than 600 days. Rights groups say a crackdown launched by the government of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi after the overthrow of Mohammed Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood in mid-2013 has muzzled freedom of expression. The report from Amnesty International said, quote, in Egypt today, anyone who challenges the authorities' official narrative, criticizes the government, or exposes human rights violations is at risk of being tossed into a jail cell, often to be held indefinitely without charge or trial, or face prosecution on trumped-up charges. The Egyptian Foreign Ministry, however, says that the report saying journalists were arrested based on a warrant from the public prosecutor and afforded full due process. Now, that doesn't sound... There's something weird about that sentence. Let me reread this. The Egyptian Foreign Ministry responded to the report, saying that all journalists that have been arrested were arrested based on a warrant from the public prosecutor and afforded full due process. And the spokesman for that agency said nobody is being targeted for being a journalist. Now, let me just pause right here and say that I don't believe that. I certainly believe that. I believe part of the statement. I do believe that they made warrants to arrest these people. I don't believe that they were valid, meaning that there was no real probable cause. It was just, we want this person arrested, so here we go, la 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 la. And they've got some weird law in Egypt to where if you say something that the government does not like, if you go against the official government narrative, then they can charge you with spreading lies. And that's an actual charge in Egypt. Reporters have been arrested and sent to jail for this. So, to say we're not targeting journalists, but we're arresting anybody that is spreading lies, well, yeah, that's a roundabout way of saying we're not targeting journalists, but we're only arresting journalists for this law. So, again, it's this thing to where they're trying to have their cake and they want to eat it too. The article here continues. No, before I get back to the article, I want to focus on something from the Amnesty International, from their report, where they say that anyone who challenges the authorities' official narrative, criticizes the government, or exposes human rights violations is at risk of being tossed into a jail cell. Now, that's not really a lot different in some ways, and in some ways it is. Like, if I say something that the U.S. government doesn't like, then I'm not necessarily going to wind up being thrown in a jail. But if I expose their human rights violations, then there's a very good chance they'll come after me, especially if they consider what I expose to be classified. Let me give you two exhibits here. Exhibit A, Private Manning. Exhibit B, Thomas Drake. Exhibit C would be Edward Snowden. And Thomas Drake, of the three that I mentioned, Thomas Drake is probably the one that is least well known. Thomas Drake, and I realize that what Drake and Snowden exposed was not necessarily human rights violations, but it was still, violations that the U.S. government is doing, where they're violating rights, they're violating, and yes, all rights are human rights in a sense, but when most people think of human rights, they think of treating people improperly, throwing them in jail for no reason, killing people without cause. And, maybe it could be construed that some of what the NSA does may lead to some of those other things. But Thomas Drake, back in the early aughts, he started with the NSA on September 11th, 2001. And some of the stuff that Edward Snowden leaked in 2013, Thomas Drake leaked the programs that were the precursors to those programs. And Thomas Drake was charged with espionage and a bunch of other horrible things. And I am fairly certain he beat most of those charges, if not all of them. But Thomas Drake was Edward Snowden before Edward Snowden was Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden is seeking asylum in Russia, and some people ask the question, if he loves freedom so much, why is he in Russia? Well, because if he stayed in the United States, he would be in a jail cell. He was in Hong Kong, and then went from Hong Kong to Russia, and there were rumors that he was then going to go to Ecuador, but his passport was revoked while he was in the airport in Russia, so he could not leave Russia. So the U.S. government basically stranded him in Russia, and now they're, portraying this thing of, if he loves freedom, why is he in Russia? As if he really had a choice, like he was trying to catch a connecting flight to go to Ecuador, but he couldn't get to Ecuador. That's why he's in Russia, because you wouldn't let him leave. But I digress, and let me get back to the story. The point, though, that I'm trying to make is that it's just a difference of degrees, what the Egyptian government is doing and what the government of the United States is doing and what various state governments are doing. And, well, actually, I will not get back to the story, but I will post the link in the show notes. You can read about all of the horrible things that have been done in Egypt, such as Al Jazeera journalists getting up to 10 years in prison for exposing rights violations. Hey, don't forget, every Wednesday, Ask Me Anything, AMA at FPPradio.com.